Inside all of this food, nutrients. Inside all these nutrients, elements. And our body utilizes all of these fantastic elements to make and do things within the body, which, we'll start to look at in the next unit. We have 6 major classes of nutrients here: carbohydrates, lipids, proteins. These are the ones that are referred to as your macros, your macronutrients. Okay. Vitamins, minerals. These are your micros. You don't need these in as big of amounts. Macro means big, micro means small. So you need large amounts of carbohydrates, lipids, proteins. You need vitamins and minerals, but you don't need to that amount. Okay, so that's why they're referred to as the macros and micros. Water, this is, for lack of a better word, a macro-ish nutrient. Okay, you need a lot of it, obviously. I don't clump it with the macros, and I think I have a reason why a little bit later, so we'll talk about it there. But these are my 6 classes of nutrients: carbs, lipids, proteins, vitamins, minerals, and water. All of those nutrients are providing certain elemental things that our body needs, like I mentioned. And as you can see, I'm not going to ask you the breakdown of how many percentage of carbs or minerals or fat is in a male or a female. It doesn't matter. I'm showing you this to show you that men and women need pretty much the same thing. Water's fairly comparable, but that can vary depending upon the environment, what you do. Protein's roughly the same, but that can vary a little bit with what you do. Do you exercise excessively, lift weights? Minerals, carbohydrates, you can see pretty bang on with one another. Fat is significantly different. Okay, fat is significantly different, but that's different for an important reason. I mean, women need a larger amount of fat because they create life. So when you get in that reproductive age, you're going to have a little bit more fat for that purpose. It also helps with having a certain amount of fat is also going to be important to help with making proper amounts of estrogens, having a menstruation, which is important because if you don't have a menstruation, that means you don't have a lot of estrogen being produced. And that can ultimately affect bone health in women. For men, not so much, but for women, having a certain amount of fat is very important to have. All of these nutrients, carbs, fats, proteins, vitamins, minerals, all of these nutrients, water, all have a vast number of functions. And when we get into the next unit, we'll look at a handful of all of those for each one. Here, ultimately, the role that these nutrients are going to do is really ultimately provide us energy. Energy, metabolism. Metabolism is how we get that energy out of these nutrients. And we'll look at that in chapter 8. It will hint at a little bit all of it in chapter 5, 6, and 7. And then we'll look at it again in chapter 8 as well, the overall process. It's more of a synopsis type of thing, introducing a few different things. But that's where we look at metabolism, how we get energy out of all of these macronutrients. They're involved in growth and development. You need all of these to grow at a proper rate. You need all of these nutrients to develop at a proper rate. Even the minerals, or I'm sorry, even the vitamins and minerals. There's some conditions associated with slowed, retarded sexual health, sexual development, with just missing one little mineral being lacked in a diet because of a certain type of food that's eaten. That's a staple of that diet. It prevents a certain mineral from being absorbed properly. And that severely slows down the development of the sexual organs in these individuals. It's also going to regulate a number of different processes, okay, of which are too many to note here on these next few slides. These are our 6 classes: carbs, lipids, proteins. These are my macros. Okay, you can see all the fantastical things that they are involved with here. Okay, but you'll notice, hopefully, that I have something highlighted on these next 2 slides. Those would be the functions that I want you to know for the first exam for all of these nutrients. Okay, we'll look at all of the fantastical ones that are involved here when we get to chapters 5, 6, and 7. Okay, 9 and 10 on the next slide. Okay, we'll look at all that stuff later. But right now, I just want you to know these ones that are in bold. Carbs, the major function of carbohydrates is energy. That's when we talk about, cellular respiration. That's why we always talk about carbohydrates when you've taken Gen Bio, I assume, okay, or 109 or 210 or 110 or whatever the case may be. We always talk about cellular respiration in terms of glucose, carbohydrates, okay? But lipids provide us energy as well, and we'll talk about that in chapter 8. That's lipids function, or one of lipids functions. Proteins. As you can see down at the very bottom, I don't even have it highlighted, but there she blows. There's energy as well. It's not its major function. A lot of other great things there. But the one that I have highlighted here, proteins make things. They make stuff. They make structural components like muscle fibers so you can move. They make functional components like enzymes. That's proteins' claim to fame. Can proteins provide energy for us? Sure, you bet. Not ideal. Not the ideal major source. Okay. Carbs, major function, energy. Lipids, major function, energy. Proteins, make things. Vitamins, well, these regulate a number of body processes and maintain a number of cells. And we'll look at all the individual vitamins and minerals later. You can see minerals do basically the same thing. Okay. But vitamins and minerals do not provide energy, though. They don't provide energy. I'll repeat that. Vitamins and minerals don't give us any energy directly. Now, they make a number of components that facilitate cellular respiration, make some intermediates within the Krebs cycle, within the electron transport chain, all that nonsense. But they themselves don't provide energy like these dudes as I do over here on this slide. Carbs, lipids, proteins, all of these can provide energy directly. Nothing on this slide does. Water, maintain fluid balance. That's the one I have highlighted, but I mean, there's a number of different things that it can do. Maintaining blood pressure, which is what fluid balance helps to maintain in the grand scheme of things. Inside all of these classes of nutrients are elements, and these are the smallest little component that we have, and this is ultimately what that body needs. Okay? The body needs these carbons, these oxygens, these hydrogens, calcium, nitrogen. They need all of these elemental components to do stuff, to make stuff, to be part of things inside the human body. Okay? We have 2 kind of overarching ways to organize all of these elements. Organic and inorganic. What's the major difference behind this? Carbon. Organic has carbon. No carbon involved here. Okay. These are your minerals. They're inorganic. Water is inorganic, H2O, no carbon. Okay. What's organic? Carbs, lipids, proteins, vitamins. All of these things are considered organic. All of these things have the carbon molecule involved with them. From a chemistry standpoint, that's really a huge thing. Okay? It's what allows these things to really allow us to harvest a buttload of energy from that carbon bond. So carbs, lipids, proteins, CLP. That's why they allow us to make a whole buttload of energy from them. Okay? And here you can see all of it. I'm not going to ask you. Okay, I'm not going to ask you all of these dang elements. But these are the major ones over here. These are the 5. Carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, calcium, oxygen. Those are the 5 major components. And we'll see these involved with a number of different things. Nitrogen with amino acids, calcium and bones, nitrogen, amino acids, proteins, structures. Okay, so we'll see a lot of these things. Carbohydrates have carbon, hydrogen, oxygen. Lipids have carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, phosphorus. Proteins have carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, sulfur, methionine, cysteine. Those are the amino acids that have sulfur. Sulfur is not necessarily an insanely bad thing. So, I mean, I could go on and on and on with these vitamins and minerals. They have a number of them. That's where we get these elements to incorporate into all of the structures of the human body. Some of these nutrients we need to supply in our diet. That is what an essential nutrient is. Okay. An essential nutrient needs to be supplied in the diet because our body cannot make them. Okay. We can't make a significant amount of water in the human body. So it's essential. We can't make certain amino acids. So a lot of them are essential. We have to get them in our diet. We have to consume them. Some things are not essential. Cholesterol, there is some cholesterol in our skin. We can make some of that within the human body. Some types of fats are that way. The omega-9s are that way. Okay. Those are fats that we can make in-house. There's some vitamins that we can make in-house. Vitamin D, vitamin K, those are probably the most common ones. Okay. So not every nutrient is essential, but 98% of them are. We need to supply them with our diet. If we don't get these essential nutrients in our diet, that can cause disease. And when something is missing, when something is not there, we refer to that as a deficiency disease. How do we know if it's a deficiency disease? Well, we can remove a food that is rich, or all foods that are rich in, let's just say, vitamin C. Remove that from a diet for a certain amount of time. Wait and see if we see some kind of deficiency disease. Something manifests itself, bleeding of the gums or whatever. Okay, now I see a change in that individual. Let's add this nutrient back. Let's add this vitamin C back. All of a sudden, bleeding gums go away. So now we know it's an essential nutrient. It's essential because if we didn't have it, bleeding of the gums resulted. So this is an essential nutrient. We have to essentially go out and get it. And that's what we do when we look for deficiency diseases. Is something lacking, return it, function restores. When we're trying to figure this out, we look at signs and symptoms. Okay. Symptoms are just what you complain about. Okay. My belly hurts. My neck is sore. Okay. Subjective complaints. Okay. Signs are what we can observe or what we can measure. Do I see the bleeding gums? Can I get your blood and measure the levels of vitamins and minerals within it? Okay. So that's the difference between signs and symptoms. And as we go through, we'll talk about some of the conditions and disorders that are out there, some of the various different vitamins and minerals. And we look for some of these signs. And we'll talk about maybe some of the symptoms, but shoot, man, some of the symptoms, they can be very similar from one thing to the next. And so just by using symptoms alone can be really, really hard in some cases when it comes to try to figuring out disease of an individual. There are some nutrients that are conditionally essential, and we're not going to get into this a whole hell of a lot. They are normally not essential, but become essential during certain health conditions, usually metabolic disorders, severe illness, being pregnant, prenatal development. So obviously that's a huge drain on women, their bodies and whatnot. So all of a sudden nutrients that were never considered essential can become essential. We'll talk about maybe a couple of these later on this semester, but we don't do a huge deep dive. There's quite a bit of them that are. Lastly, this concept of macro and micro. Again, why are they there? Why do we use those? Because we need these things in large amounts. Okay. Water is not considered a macronutrient. Water is not considered a macronutrient because it does not provide energy. We need it in a large amount. Water provides no energy. That's why it's not listed here. I'm going to put E for energy. Okay, it doesn't provide any energy. That's why it's not listed with the macronutrients. All of those macros you need in a large amount, and they all can provide units of energy. Micros, they are needed in very, very small amounts. Okay. But that's why water is not up there, even though it is needed in very large amount. Cups is a large amount, okay, compared to the micronutrients. Some are needed in very small amounts and then very, 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 very small amounts. And there's another thing here. The book gets into it a little bit, not a whole heck of a lot. We'll mention it throughout some of the various different vitamins and minerals. We'll talk about sources of these things. Some of them is going to be meat. Some of them are going to be in plants. In plants, they're incorporated in what we call phytochemicals. Right? These phytochemicals are secretions or substances that the plants produce that provide a very positive chemical effect within the body. Okay. And there I've written a couple examples. Caffeine, beta carotene. Caffeine in small amounts is fantastic. Stimulates fat loss, keeps you awake, keeps you warm in the morning if you like it hot, I guess. Beta carotene is an antioxidant. It also helps with the ability to help with your eye health. So there's a lot of these things that are beneficial. And poop, quercetin, resveratrol, tannins. There's a number of them. Resveratrol is one of the newer ones. It has an antioxidant effect. Quercetin helps. It's an anti-inflammatory. It helps with swelling and inflammation of the mucosa of the sinus cavities. Okay. Tannins, an antioxidant effect. Not all of them are good though. Nicotine, not. Ricin, not. Oxalic acid, not. There's no beneficial effects. It doesn't mean it's going to cause you death or anything if you consume oxalic acid. But we'll talk about that a little bit later this semester as well. Here's all of them. These are all the phytochemicals that are of scientific interest, whatever. That's not going to be on the exam. It's just here to show you, where you can, why these things are good. All of these things are basically antioxidants. Carotenoids, you can see it up there. Prevents certain cancers, not all of them. Prevents blindness because all of them are involved with eye health. Quercetin, phenols, catechins, anthocyanins, resveratrol, isoflavonoids, tannins. All of these are antioxidants. There's nothing here, but you can put antioxidants. That's what they all are. They help prevent wear and tear, help prevent some of the excessive signs of aging. Those isoflavonoids prevent certain inflammations, some tumor growth. Those anthocyanins are associated with helping to lower your blood pressure. Resveratrol helps with, can reverse age is associated with longevity in certain animal studies. In humans, not so much, but it does have an antioxidant effect. Quercetin, like I said, diminishes inflammation, helps with blood pressure and whatnot. So a lot of great, fantastic, things out there in the form of plants. So if you don't consume a damn plant, you are really negating yourself a lot of health benefits here. Am I saying go vegan? No. Am I saying eat some damn vegetables with your meals? Yes. Have a salad. Yeah. Do I want you to give up that meat? Heaven forbid. Okay. But you don't have to eat as much as you probably do.